I've spent more than a decade of my life living outside of my home country, away from the family and friends that I grew up with, and I've been encouraging you to do the same for everything from lower taxes to more freedoms to greater social opportunities. But today, I'm going to pull back the curtain and tell you some things I've never shared before about what I've lost living overseas, from friends to money and more. And so in the 5 years that I was milling about before I left my country, and in the decade or so that I've been totally out, it's been the adventure of a lifetime. I've watched the world emerge in front of me. I've met beautiful people, had amazing business opportunities pop up, and yes, even saved millions of dollars in taxes. But I want to tell you a little bit about who I am and what I lost on both the business side and on the personal side. And there's probably some things that will surprise you here because it's not the stuff that you would imagine. So a quick moment about me. Despite what money folks believe, I'm actually pretty introverted. Yes, I can host parties for our team, and we've hosted parties around the world, but I really recharge being on my own. I like a lot of me time. I've started really all of my businesses, both in the United States and now Nomad Capitalist and others overseas, without much of a network. I have people who I talk to. I have people who are more experienced than I do, but I've never had a lot of mentors. And most of my wealth at this point has been built outside of the United States. And so when people look at what Nomad Capitalist talks about, and we say, hey, listen, if you move to another country, you'll pay a lot less in taxes, which means you can grow your business or your portfolio faster. You'll have a greater sense of freedom. You'll see the world. There's probably some business opportunities that'll pop up. The two big things people mention are family and friends. And so for family, I never had a super close extended family. What I have seen, though, is two things. The first thing is your moving will inspire people to do the same if they're at all inclined to do so. So my parents ended up buying a second home outside of the United States in a place that they might not have thought about before Nomad Capitalist, but they saw me doing this, and that was part of their impetus to say, okay, he's doing it, he hasn't died yet, nobody's mowed him down in the streets. Hey, this international thing seems pretty cool. And what we've seen from our clients is sometimes your family wants to come with you, but those that don't, you can often convince them by doing it. And so what we see with clients is the people who never make any traction are the ones who let their family dictate their life. I was fortunate enough as a kid to get a permission slip. My father said, go where you're treated best, and that may be in another country. I took him up on that. And so I was fortunate enough that I never got shamed for living in another country. Obviously, many people aren't so fortunate, but I think that not only can your immediate family, of course, come with you, the people that we work with almost always do that. What you can see is we've had people bring their parents with them sometimes. There are residence programs and passport programs that let you add your parents to the program, sometimes even add siblings. And so, hey, get everybody together, right? Depending on how big your family is, it's possible to do that. The ones that don't come might follow, and the ones that never want to come really shouldn't hold you back. Because you know what I've also heard? I've been on the phone a few times with grown men crying into the phone because they're not sure what to do. They don't want to let their family down. They don't want to let their girlfriend down. Those people don't want to move, but they feel like I'm missing out. Forget the tax savings, even though it was often substantial. They felt like I'm missing out on an opportunity that I will regret not taking. And I feel so badly telling my family that I'm going a different direction. But in my case, I think it's very instructive. Your family should support you with what you want to do. So for me, the family piece wasn't really a big piece. The other piece was the friends. And so I did find that I lost some friends. And the way I looked at it, quite frankly, was those people didn't want to be my friends to begin with. I had friends that even when I wasn't in the United States all the time, but I was there a decent part of the time, they kind of started pulling back when I started doing a lot of travel, as if our friendship was something like out of the second grade, where if we don't walk home from school every day together, we're not friends anymore. And I just thought, to me, that rubbed me the wrong way, that we can still talk, we can still spend plenty of time together. Obviously, I don't go back to the United States. Even when I was a citizen, I really tried to avoid going back. But most people that we work with as clients, they'll go back, whether it's a week a year, a month a year. You can, in many cases, get away with a couple months a year. You can go back. But here's what I've also found. I've found friends who really do care about seeing me. I've got one friend who lives in a main airline hub. and he takes 10-hour, 12-hour, 15-hour flights to come to a birthday party, or recently to our 10-year anniversary party for Nomad Capitalist. He comes all over the place, and so you really see who your friends are. And so you can build friends. I recently sat down, what I thought for a very introverted 38-year-old man was actually pretty good. Got 11 or 12 people that I would consider pretty decent friends. Now the problem is, when you've lived, as I have rather nomadically, they were in like 9 different cities. And so it's not like, hey, 11 of us, let's all go out to dinner tonight. But again, for someone like me, I really prefer that one-on-one dynamic. And so it's nice to have people all around the world, no matter where you go, there's 1 or 2 people you can hang out with. And as I'm increasingly spending a little bit of time in English-speaking countries like Ireland, you do find it's a little bit easier to make friends. And so if friends are more important to you, yeah, I mean, I live in Malaysia. Malaysia used to be a place where expats would come and live. There were big companies that had all expat workers. And so there was a certain ecosystem that left in the last couple of years. And so Malaysia is a great place to go and live with a family, or if you want to get to know locals, and there are a few expats. But if you are someone who really needs to meet a lot of friends, you might want to go somewhere where they speak English, where everyone is your potential friend, rather than only the people who speak English. So for me, those 2 things really aren't an issue. They were never an issue for me. And I think they're not an issue for a lot of people as much as you would think. But here's what I actually did lose. And I'm going to break this down into the business side and into more of the social kind of business, but also social side. The big thing on the business side that I lost, and I had a friend summarize this very well. He said, you have a business that doesn't pay tax, and you personally pay very little tax, but you do pay a tax in that you've had to learn the restrictions on how to run your business internationally. For example, Americans are, I would say, in the upper tier of salesmen and saleswomen. If you run a business, and this is not tax advice, but generally we would tell someone, you shouldn't have your salespeople in the United States. You're going to get yourself in a whole world of tax hurt. Not tax advice, but that's generally what we've seen. Now, can you get Americans who want to live somewhere else and do the sales work from somewhere else? Yes. But every different country has their own restrictions. And what we've talked about historically is there are plenty of emerging countries where people are very intelligent and have good degrees and bring skills that maybe a Westerner wouldn't. And their country is much more tax friendly for, hey, your operating company might be in a free zone of the UAE, might be in Hong Kong, might be in the Cayman Islands, but you're going to engage with people who are working all around the world. If you have enough of them, as we have, you might set up a company that employs all your staff in one country. But if you just have 1 or 2 of them, how does that affect you? What is the tax nexus that's created by having people working for you in those countries? And so it is a bigger issue. The same as you moving to a European country can be low tax, but it's a lot more work. You can hire people in Western countries, but it's a lot more work, and sometimes it's a bit more risk. Now, if you came to me and said, hey, I need 20 employees, I need salesmen, I need people doing all kinds of work, we've helped companies, and we have a whole network of tax experts all around the world. We put the pieces together holistically. We can help with those tax experts, help you figure out how to keep employees in different places to the extent that it's possible. So you're not going to have to spend years, as I did, figuring out where to put those people. But it did take me a number of years to where you had to get on the learning curve of hiring foreigners. Different cultures are a little bit different sometimes. They bring good, and they also bring some challenges. And so the tax that I had to pay probably could have grown faster initially by having the knowledge that I have now that I would share with the client about how to bypass this whole international tax and legal and regulatory and cultural issue of hiring people and building a business overseas. So there's where the experience can benefit someone to get started right away rather than having to reinvent the wheel. But I had to reinvent the wheel because no one else was talking about this stuff. On the more social side and where it connects with business, I do think I'm seeing organizations like EO, Tiger 21, it seems like they are expanding. I got a call from someone recently, hey, if you're going to be in Ireland, why don't you come and check us out? Because I think they're open. One of these organizations is opening up there. So those are the kind of the high-level organizations for successful entrepreneurs. I've basically run my entire life businesses on my own. I've used my own intuition. I continue to believe that intuition is one of the best things to running a business. But I probably could have gone somewhat faster having people around me. Now I go back to the introvert part where I was living in the United States. I was living in my own country and not doing this. And so the issue is more of my own personality type rather than where I'm living. But you might want to consider that. If you're going to move to Timbuktu, you're not going to have some of the same people. I have talked to people, as I mentioned, with a network of friends. I talk to people on, Zoom calls or whatever it may be, to learn. But if, those masterminds and that kind of stuff, if I can't go to the U.S. or I don't want to go to the U.S., there are plenty of masterminds, particularly in the United States, where they're like, wait a second, there are other countries? People are coming. Like, you tell an American that there are certain people in the world that can't come to the United States, they're just not going to get a visa, or and it's like unfathomable to them. They just think everyone can come to the U.S. Like, what bad hombres did you think you were keeping out? And so, being in some of the masterminds, being in some of the U.S. circles, is something that I just don't do. Now, again, for me personally, I didn't really want to go to the U.S. And obviously, a client who keeps their U.S. citizenship or who gets an equal quality citizenship can probably just visit the United States, whether it's for a day, a week, a month, some limit. And you could insert name of your Western country here for the United States. But you aren't going to be able just to go all the time if you want the tax benefits of living overseas. You can't just, be in the U.S. half the time. And so that, and I would say, speaking at events. Our events, Nomad Capitalist Live, we've hosted a number of events in Mexico. This year, Nomad Capitalist Live is in Kuala Lumpur. I really want to show people Kuala Lumpur. I think it's a dramatically underrated city. You will come and you will see this is better than many cities in the U.S. And you will spend 4 days learning an immense amount of information that we share from our R&D team. You'll be hearing amazing keynote speakers. You'll meet hundreds of like-minded people. Go to nomadcapitalist.com/live and join us for Nomad Capitalist Live. But we do our events outside of the U.S. Did the very first one back when we didn't make any money in Vegas, just to try it out. And I paid a little tax on that. But there was not much tax to pay. Most people that live overseas, they still go back to the U.S. and have their events. And so people come and sometimes speak at or participate in our events, but then they're like, yeah, we don't want this Henderson guy. I'm kind of off their radar in a sense, where it's like, I don't get invited to speak at their stuff because they're like, he's not going to come to Orlando. It would be nice to be asked, but I guess they figure, hey, he's not going to come to Miami, Orlando, Austin, whatever. And so, again, do I want to spend my life going and speaking at various events? Probably not. And when you're a business owner, you realize that your time is often more valuable in your business than it is speaking. So I'd have to get paid. I mean, some people I would do it for them for free because I like them. But, most people I'd be like, listen, here's my price tag for me to stop what I'm doing and travel to you. That's why a lot of business speakers charge very high fees. But nevertheless, I am a little bit outside, I think, of all the U.S. circles where you see people who are on YouTube, you see people who host events that are smaller than Nomad Capitalist. And then you see them, they're all kind of, feeding off of each other's events and stuff like that. And I think that being outside of the U.S. probably got me out of that. That's probably a unique situation to me. If you're just someone building a business that's not, creating in public, probably doesn't matter. And again, if you're like, hey, I'm willing to go back to the U.S. for a month, a year, then maybe you stay on the radar. But even then, I'm not sure you do. I think that particularly in the U.S., because it's really hard for people to fathom, for Americans to fathom other countries, I really think that if you're not there all the time, you're probably going to miss out on some opportunities. Do I think that if I was speaking on stages at a bunch of U.S. conferences, I'd be making more money? I don't know, maybe. And yet, do I want to do that? And so I think, that plus, being on podcasts, a lot of these podcasts, like we film at 4 p.m. Austin time. That's 5 in the morning in Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur, where's that? So we've been able to work out most of those, but there's just kind of especially with the U.S. and North America, there's kind of a chasm there. I've never been a guy looking for VC money, but if you are, that's an issue. I think that people relying on VC money generally have to set up these Delaware C Corps. It's not as tax efficient. Those have not been our most successful clients in some cases where people really need that VC function. There's VCs other places, but I guess people look at venture capital as kind of, the U.S. being the best place. And so probably what you're hearing to some extent is, I just wanted to leave the U.S., and you would be correct. Many of the clients that we serve here, their goal is, hey, I wouldn't mind staying in the U.S., but these taxes are ridiculous. My business is growing. Can you please help me? And they figure, hey, listen, living in Dubai, it's going to be just as good. And maybe they'll find that it's better as living wherever they're living in the U.S. But for me, I left, and the taxes were the bonus. And I had to figure out the hard way, How do you legally, reduce your taxes in the US? Because they do follow you no matter where you go, but you can reduce them. On average, we do that with our tax pros by about 85%. How do you handle taxes where you go? How do you get a residence permit? How do you move your banking? Do you have to lose your US banking? If you're an American especially, you're in a unique position, but really everyone from the Western country these days, it's hard. And that's exactly what Nomad Capitalist helps people figure out, because in all this time I've been traveling and not doing stuff in the US, I've been meeting all the experts and vetting people all around the world to where we've helped our clients move to 31 tax-friendly countries, get passports in like 28 different countries, open bank accounts, I was shocked, in 48 different countries. You do that by on-the-ground experience. And so the stuff that I lost, not being in the US, you may not want to lose, but you'll have more opportunity not to lose it by taking advantage of all the years of work that we've done, being on the ground in other places, and just shortening the learning curve to very, very short, hiring Nomad Capitalist to create your business's tax reduction plan by going overseas. So go to nomadcapitalist.com if you're looking for someone to take a holistic approach towards shortening the learning curve. You can call the guy from Dubai to set up the Dubai company, get the Dubai residence, whatever it may be. That's not going to solve your entire problem. It's not even going to solve a small chunk of it. There might be 7 or 8 different parts involved, and that's what we've figured out, because I had no other choice but to figure it out for myself. And we've decided to put everything under one roof so that you don't have to hire 7 or 8 different people. That's where the learning curve gets really long. We shorten it for you. So what I would say is friction for me helped me grow, helped me improve. Moving to Florida was something I didn't want to do, and I didn't realize this back then. Even moving to Puerto Rico for tax savings. You get in an echo chamber when you stay in the US, I believe. Because you're in the, for me, wanting to be international and seeing the amazing benefits of doing business and investing globally, being in the US mastermind, nothing against that. If you want to do it, fine. For me, the friction came from being surrounded by other cultures and being forced to say, okay, how do I increase my self-awareness? What am I doing wrong? What do I need to do more of? Other cultures force you to see more about yourself in a more authentic way and improve. So to me, yes, probably lost some deals not being on a stage in the US. Yes, not being on some guy's podcast because it was at 5 in the morning, probably lost something. But I think the self-awareness and the self-improvement and all the personal stuff that came with it, in addition to the fact I just wanted to live this way and just that I am introverted, I think that friction of living entirely in other cultures has caused me to dramatically improve as a person and as an entrepreneur. And that to me, while immeasurable, is worth probably more than had I been able to go back or wanted to go back to the US and not lost out on a few of the dollars that I missed out on.